building up a fortune only happens if you save and you're not spending it on luxury or whatever. If you put your money back into the company, and then you can grow. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to speak here. And it's a little bit unusual because I'm more businessman and less politics. But I believe family companies is something which is very often internationally not sufficiently recognized. And my background is quite simple. Our family was ruling Bavaria for almost 800 years. And so being connected with all other royal families in Europe, it was also something like a family network in the past. However, today things are a little bit different. And I think we need to look at that in more detail. Germany as a nation is a country of family companies. After World War II, the business model of Germany was based on what we called soziale Marktwirtschaft, to be clearly differentiated from sozialistische Marktwirtschaft. And it means, as an entrepreneur, you are responsible for your company, but for your employees and for your country. And so if you own something, if you own land, if you own a company, and that means it's not just a question of accumulating money, it's also a question of giving it back to society to build up a stable society. And that was the core of German economy in the past. And one of the key things of that is responsibility. Today, I feel that responsibility is gradually getting lost. Everybody looks for reinsurance, to be insured, not to make a decision, to get another document that takes away your responsibility. It's someone who has given you a paper that someone else is responsible and you don't make decisions. In private companies, it's a bit different. If you are the owner, you are responsible. You make a decision, whether it's good or bad, but at least there's someone who has made the decision and he has no excuse. And that, I think, makes things a little bit different. We have to, as family companies, be long-term thinking because we want to pass on to the next generation. And it's not just like shareholder value and trying to get the maximum out of a company. It is to build up silent reserves. It is to build up money for research and development, to pass on a company into the next generation. And that's how those companies are sometimes very successful. And building up a fortune only happens if you save and you're not spending it on luxury or whatever. If you put your money back into the company, and then you can grow. And the only thing which is difficult about that is if the state says, okay, they're very rich, the value of the company is huge, so this has to be taxed. Now, if you do that, and the company will have to be sold, and you end up with a public company, which is doing absolutely the opposite. It's not as safe in case of trouble. And when we had the economic crisis in Germany in 2008, and in the world, the family companies had no problems because they had so much hidden reserves that they don't needed much support from the state. They were able to run it by themselves. The big public companies were asking and crying for help, not to go bust. That's the business difference. Now in Germany today, and I think not many people are aware of that, 70% of the total jobs in Germany are in family-owned companies. We have what you probably know, the dual education system, which is where you can learn on the job. You have 3 years apprenticed, and then you become a professional in a certain craft, and then you can make a master's course. 80% of the apprentices in Germany are working in family companies. That's quite remarkable. And I think this is something which is not always recognized by the politics, what that really means. Our risk is, if the next generation doesn't do the job correct, then companies may disappear. But at the end of the day, if they do, someone will buy them, and then you're not worse off than in other systems where family companies are not existing. Then they may be taken over by a colleague, or maybe sold out, or maybe even closed. But that's not really what's happening normally. And what was interesting, if you look international, today we have political crisis left, right, and center. Things change. We have boycotts. We have sanctions. We have crazy tax rules. And if you want to go international as a company, particularly as a private company, and I'm a very small private company, and you have to look of ways how you can survive in those situations. And what we found is that we have family companies worldwide. And we had a couple of conferences of family companies meeting with each other. For instance, we had a big German-Turkish family meeting, and I remember that was a great success. We had meetings in the Middle East. We had meetings in India, where owners meet owners, because we have the same, basically the same difficulties, the same threats, and the same values. And therefore, it is much easier to speak together, build up contacts on a personal level with people who have the right to make a decision and who have no excuse. They cannot say, okay, I'm a manager and my control board didn't accept. If you speak to the owner, you either get a yes or a no, or maybe let's discuss it, but you don't get something which is unpredictable. And so we were able to connect with family companies in other parts of the world. Now, if you do that, you have to start understanding each other's way of life. You have to start understanding their culture. It is not always quite easy at first glance because people react a bit different. But if you sit around, you eat with them, you maybe visit them for a few days, you exchange cultural events, and have them invited to Germany or vice versa, you start to understand each other and you can build up trust. And once you've got trust established, this is something which doesn't disappear overnight. That's something where you can build up a solid business long term, and you can get independent of the political storms to a certain extent. For instance, we produce in many countries of the world. Now, governments change and tax rules change, but if we are producing in the other country, we're not as easy to be destroyed by it. The difficulty is sometimes to find the right people, to find the right countries, but as I said, you find independent family companies worldwide. And I believe networking, and to both sides' benefit, is much easier if you're doing it on a personal level rather than having it orchestrated by governments and states. And when I was going and traveling and meeting other companies worldwide, we very rarely used the official routes. The official routes are normally being tested by dozens of companies before. We normally just looked up where are those companies who could be suitable and contact them either directly or sometimes, from a German side, that's possible, through our equipment suppliers. I'm in the brewing industry, in the beer industry, and I would say most breweries in the world have equipment from Germany. So by the equipment dealers, you can find out who is existing, how are they doing, are they private, are they reasonably independent, and is the company worthwhile speaking to. So it's easy for us to get an introduction. But as I said, going in the normal routes normally was not as successful. It was much easier to go directly. I think in the future, if we can build up more networks throughout the world, this has no borders. As long as you can at least travel to a certain extent, you can build up connections worldwide. You're not limited. You're not limited by politics. You're not limited by sanctions. You can speak to each other. And I think that's the short message I wanted to pass on. Think about enforcing family companies in each country. I think this will be to your benefit, and I think that can be the backbone to a solid economy in the future. Thank you.